Hello friends, my name is Tyler Brownrigg and welcome to another episode of Hitting the Field main show. And before I get into what we're going to be talking about this week, I just want to give a quick shout out to the HTF Women's Month special. Comes out tomorrow at noon. Be sure to check that out. It'll be on our channel. But anyway, getting into what we're going to be talking about today, starting with, we'll be previewing the NHL Trade Deadline, which is tomorrow at 3. We'll be talking about some teams what moves they need to be making, what moves we might expect to happen. So that'll be interesting. And then following that, it'll be a preview of the top 3 conference tournaments that we think are going to be the most interesting as we start to head into March. What teams are the best teams in those conferences, and maybe who can make a run to make some noise, end up making some noise in the tournament. And then finally, I'll be closing it off with a rant about the historic moment that took place with the Dartmouth men's basketball team. You won't want to miss it. It's going to be a great show today, so stick around because main show starts right now.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated champs, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back. Okay, always locked in, now I don't got time to lax. Saying he the best, he could take a lap. Batted 1,000 when you check the stats. Boy, is you ready? You ain't gotta ask.
Welcome, and we are back. And joining me to talk NHL is, of course, as usual, Frankie Noble. But making her debut on Main Show, Madeline Howe. How are you doing? Are you excited to be here on Main Show today?
I am so psyched to be here. Thank you guys so much for having me. Talking about my favorite sport, which is hockey. I am so beyond grateful to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm excited. Let's get into it.
As I said earlier in the intro, the MLB trade deadline is tomorrow, so we'll be talking about 6 teams in total. To start, this will be like some concept teams. What should we expect these teams to do as the trade deadline approaches? So we have 3 categories. Eyes on the market. This is a team that has to make a trade to really make some noise in the postseason and keep any momentum that they currently have. After that, we'll have let the kids play, which is, everything's going great for this team right now. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And then finally, there's always next year. This is a team that this isn't it for them. They don't have the pieces yet. They'll figure it out next year, hopefully. But Mads, I want to start with you. What is your team and what is their concept?
So my team that I'm talking about is there's always next year, Edmonton Oilers. Ever really since they had Wayne Gretzky in the 90s, they really haven't been back to the cup or really won a cup since. So the thing is they always get the first trade, the second trade, because they're constantly getting those really good scores, but they're lacking on defense. And a lot, they have McDavid, which is great. We love Connor McDavid. He's great. But where they really messed up last year was they were just simply out-coached last year, specifically by Vegas. And that honestly cost Jay Woodcraft his job after 13 games this season, was being not the best coach at the time. But after they got the new coach, Chris Knobloch, the Oilers have gone 35-11-1 and are riding currently a 5-game winning streak. So that's pretty great. But at the same time, they're still they still have those same players. I'm hoping to see more trades happening where they can get more defense in there. And also going into the playoffs, since there's a lot of potential. There is a bunch of potential for them. However, you're going up against these teams that have been to the playoffs many, many times before, and I definitely think they'll make the playoffs. However, I'm not sure if they're going to go far within the playoffs. But they definitely have some promise. I'm not sure if it's this year, but under the new coaching, I really do think there's going to be a little bit of a change.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And I really think the big thing about Edmonton is you have a guy like McDavid, who's such a star. Mm-hmm. Wasting potential like that is not something you can afford. He basically is their window. So, Frankie, are there any thoughts you wanted to add on Edmonton?
I do have a lot of thoughts on Edmonton. Yeah. I mean, I think, we definitely talk about Connor McDavid, but we should highlight Leon Draisaitl too. One of the best wingers in the league.
100%.
They thought that they were going to do something when they signed Corey Perry. I don't know why they thought that. He's not great.
No.
And after his leave of absence, I don't think he's going to produce what they thought he would. They did just get Henrique, I think it was literally last night, and Carrick. I think Henrique will bring some physicality that they definitely need going into playoffs. You have these teams that have the physicality. They don't care if they shed a little bit of blood, and they didn't really have that. So I think that that'll help them a little bit. I think they should make a few more trades before tomorrow, but I think they're setting it up to be a real contender.
I agree, definitely.
All right, so now moving on to my team, I have the Colorado Avalanche, which I say they are eyes on the market. And the reason I say that, now they've already been making some moves prior to the trade deadline already. Currently, as of right now, the reason I think they should do this is they sit third in their division, 83 points. That's actually, well, tied for second technically with the Winnipeg Jets. So they're in danger of falling in that wild card spot. Though currently the wild card in the West is the Vegas Knights with 73 points. So they're not like, they're not going to like miss the playoffs. They're not in jeopardy of that. But they definitely need to do something because they won't be able to keep up with a team like Dallas, Vancouver, or Winnipeg long-term, I think, in the postseason. So I think a big need for them, adding depth offensively, maybe like a second-line winger or some veteran presence to beef up their offense, which is definitely their strength. And that's a big thing I think teams should always try and do come trade deadline season. Any sport is, yes, you have issues, maybe defensively, that you need to address, but what you're good at, if you know what you're good at, you should try to improve at that as much as you can. Play into your strengths as much. So, Frankie, I'll start with you. Any thoughts you have on my pick?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I don't know how long that they can ride the whole Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, Mikko Rantanen train. So they definitely need to make some moves. I know Bowen Byram just got traded for Casey Middlestat, so that's one thing that they can do. They're in an okay position. Like it's not a big deal, but I think that they should start making some more moves other than just Bowen Byram, because I mean it's a move, but it's not a big one, and they need to get people to help McKinnon and Makar, because Makar's also a defenseman. Yeah, he's an offensive defenseman, but like he needs help on both sides of it.
And Matt, any thoughts you'd like to share
Honestly, the
also?
same. Honestly, the exact same. You know, the trade happened, and they're considering it major, but like, we're gonna have to see. We're gonna have to see it to believe it. Truly,
Absolutely.
honestly.
All right, so let's move on to our final team of this first half. Frankie, I'll just let you have this because I think
Yeah.
you're gonna enjoy talking about this one.
I don't think anybody should be surprised. I'm going to talk about the Florida Panthers. I have them at Let the Kids Play. They have a stellar team. And I'm not biased when I say that. They do. You have Matthew Tkachuk, who's a star. You have Sam Reinhart, who has over 40 goals already. Nobody expected that, so that's pretty awesome. And you have Bobrovsky between the pipes. Stellar team. They're going to make a long run. However, they did just sign Vladimir Tarasenko, which I literally can go on and on about how this is such an unbelievable trade right before the trade deadline. They got him for literally nothing. 2 mid-draft picks. Insane. And everybody knows Tarasenko. If you know hockey, you know Vladimir Tarasenko. So I think that's pretty awesome. Ottawa retained 50% of his salary for 2 mid picks. So that's great. If anything, I think they should keep their roster where it is now. They just signed Gustav Forsling for 8 years. Their best defenseman. So they're set. If anything, I think they should sign Anthony Duclair again. Just get him traded. He was traded last year, and he does so much for the South Florida community. I think bringing him back, Tarasenko did just take his number, but that's fine. I think you should bring him back. He's open. He's available. Bring him back, and then I think you get him. We have Gustav signed. We have Tarasenko. I think they're going to go all the way. They're going to take the Stanley Cup this year. Please, let's take it. They're going to take it. I don't think they have any competition. They have the best team. I'm going to call it right now.
Better than their last Stanley Cup Finals team?
Yes. I think that they wanted to come back and prove that they deserve to be a team that's going into the playoffs time and time again, and they're going to make that Stanley Cup run again because they deserve it, and they have the team, they have the coach, they have everything that'll make them a Stanley Cup contender.
I couldn't say it better myself, honestly. They're currently first in the East, 90 points, best scoring team in terms of goal differential, plus 61. Honestly, the sky's the limit for them. But now let's move on to more specific trades that we think we should happen and right before the deadline. So, Frankie, I'll go back to you to start this segment. What is yours?
Okay, so I said the team that should be making some trades is the Vegas Golden Knights. They have the same thing every year. I'm not too sure how I feel about it. They're going to put these players on the IR. They have Mark Stone on the IR, and Alec Martinez just got hurt. They're going to try and put him on the IR. That's just the way they run when they go into the playoffs, because they want these players to be on the IR so that they can save their cap space, make some trades, and then blow it all in the playoffs and bring these players back, because the cap doesn't matter in the playoffs. So last night I was so mad. It was literally 11:30 p.m. I was excited to come on the show and talk about how they should go for Noah Hanifin, and they did. So I mean, maybe I'm just like a prophet or something, but they traded him, and I mean, they traded him for Daniil Miramanov, which that's not a big name. It doesn't really matter, and they got Noah Hanifin in return. And
Hanifin's really good
as
well.
Really
like,
good, and
really good.
I think they'll
Not talked about enough.
He's not, and I think He'll help. I'm not too sure how I feel about him being a defenseman. I don't really think they needed a defenseman. I think they need those wingers because they have Mark Stone gone. Alec Martinez now gone. They just need some wingers. I think my best choice for them would be Riley Smith. He's an original Knight. He was in the expansion draft. Get him back. He got the Stanley Cup with them last year. Bring him back. Everybody loves a comeback story. Bring him back. If not, Anthony Duclair, if he doesn't come back to the Panthers, even though I want him to, Jordan Eberle, Pavel Buchnevich, bring them, get some wingers in, and I think that's the trades that they should be making. They should really focus on these wingers. They're fine with centers. I mean, Jack Eichel's back from injury, so they're fine with that. They're fine with defense, especially now with Noah Hannafin. I just think they should focus on these wingers and make some trades there.
All right, now I'll move it on to my team. We're getting a bit crunched for time here. My team is the Vancouver Canucks, which if you remember the last time we talked NHL, I'm a big Canucks fan. All right, not like actually, I just love them this season. They hold a special place in my heart. I think the biggest thing is like, all right, you're one of the best offenses in the NHL this season. They came out and it was like amazing. They were scoring goals nonstop. You're the best team in the Western Conference. But teams like Winnipeg and the Stars are catching up on you in terms of points. They're only 2 points ahead of second place Dallas in the West. So I think a guy whose name has been thrown a lot around in trade talks, Jake Guentzel, should be the guy they target to further bolster their offense. And a big reason why I think he goes there is he does have connections with the current coach and a member of their front office from their time in Pittsburgh. So he knows them. He'd be familiar with their system and people in that organization. And he has said he is interested. Vancouver as one of his destinations. So it makes sense. It seems like all these dots are connecting for him to make a move to Vancouver. But now really quick, Mads, tell us about your team before we wrap up this segment.
Yes, running into my team, I picked the Boston Bruins as always because I love the Bruins. I got Ezra in the back hitting up Go Bruins. Shout out that.
Big fan.
Boston got to stick together. That's all I can say. But so, Bruins, obviously, we just lost our first position spot to the Florida Panthers. I do agree that Florida Panthers are really doing well this year. However, ever since the loss of Bergeron and Krejci from the Bruins, we have been missing a center, and that has been really tough for the Bruins to kind of maintain because not only was it Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci that we lost, like the players, but those are also the original members of the 2011 Stanley Cup win. So we're really missing that great connection. We only got Brad Marchand left and from the original team, and we just, they're really in need of a center. So what I have chosen, it was originally Noah Hannafin, because that's what I was thinking, but of course, last night came. And so right now I'm just thinking Elias Lindholm from the Canucks right now, which was traded earlier this year. He's a center. I think he would be good. We're not in desperate need, but we are desperate in need of that group to come back together. So Elias Lindholm is who I'm choosing for that. Yeah. So.
All right, but that is sadly all the time we have to talk NHL. Thank you, both of you, so much for coming on. It was great having you. But stick around because next segment we'll be talking NCAA basketball, so you won't want to miss that. Hello, my name is Tyler Brownrigg. I hope you're enjoying watching whatever show it is that's playing right now here on Hitting the Field Network. And if you're interested in more of our shows or want to know more about the one you're currently watching, don't worry, I'm here to tell you. Our week starts off on Mondays with HTF Bets, hosted by the Bets Boys, Andrew Montana, Ezra Hines, and Giovanni St. Cyrin. You can catch that show live Mondays at noon for all things betting in sports. I highly recommend it. And then you can follow it off on Tuesday with The Combine, hosted by the illustrious Ty Patton. If you're in for a more laid-back, kind of podcast-style show, a lot more casual, that is definitely the show for you. Maybe you'll catch some Ty Squared action with me on there. Wednesdays every week, you'll be able to catch the vlog, learn about what's going on behind the scenes here in the studio at Hitting the Field, get to know more about us, especially the people behind the camera, who they are and what we do to make these shows every week. And on Thursdays, live at noon, you can watch the main show with me as your host every Thursday, where we'll be covering all of the major storylines for any sport, be it football, basketball, hockey, soccer, you name it, we'll be talking about it on the main show. And then Friday, you can watch Nighttime with your hosts, Maddie Glass and Patrick Previty, for all things college sports, especially with a focus on UCF sports and maybe the ones you haven't heard about so often, like tennis or women's track and field. It can be anything college on Nighttime. And if you're interested in joining Hitting the Field and you're a UCF student, DM us on any of our social medias at Hitting the Field, and also give us a follow on all those and subscribe to this channel. if you want to catch more of our content. But enjoy the rest of your show. As always, I'm Tyler Brownrigg, and I'll be seeing you on Main Show. And we are back. There was no nighttime recorded this week because we had to record the Women's History Month special. So I'm going back to my roots a bit, talking college sports back where it all began. And joining me here, Noah Kemper, our college basketball expert and big Kansas Jayhawks fan, and making your Main Show debut, Matthew Bracker. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here. I'm almost done with the HTF gauntlet. I think I got to get on bets.
Bets? We got. All right. So we got one more. We're almost there. All right, so we have picked 3 conferences to preview as we're getting closer to, or actually it is March, and we're getting closer to March Madness. And so conference tournaments are starting up this week and next week, I believe, is when it'll be really in a full swing of things. So we've picked 3. And to give you a brief summary first, I'll tell you. I've picked the Big Ten Conference, which is, again, these are probably the biggest 3 basketball conferences right now. I have teams I'm highlighting are Purdue, Illinois, and Ohio State. And then Matthew has the Big 12, where he'll be telling us about Houston, Iowa State, Kansas, and then Noah will be capping us off with the ACC, where he has Duke, UNC, and UVA. So Matthew, I'll start with you. First, let's talk about the actual current top 5 rankings in the Big 12 conference. You do have Houston and Iowa State, who I believe are in there. So tell us about that.
Right. Well, as I said on Nighttime a couple weeks ago, the Big 12 is undoubtedly the best conference in college basketball. Right? You look at this conference, and it is just stacked. Okay. We look at the standings, right? So we have Houston at number 1 in the conference and in the nation. And then we have Iowa State at number 2, followed by Baylor, Texas Tech, and Kansas. All right. 8 teams in the Big 12 right now have 20 or more wins out of 14 teams. That's more than half. That's more than any other conference right now. No one does it like the Big 12. And I just want to shout out to, not only is it the dominating teams like Houston or Iowa State that are making this conference as good as it is. I know it seems a little biased, but I got to shout out UCF and K-State, some of these lower ranking teams, because it just feels like any of these teams can come out and put on a show. I don't think anyone's going to forget the UCF-Kansas game. I don't know. But no, I feel like any team in this conference can turn it on when they want to, except for West Virginia. Except for West Virginia.
Except for West. Poor country roads take me home, man.
Take them home.
Yeah. So, but tell me a little bit more about the top the top team in the Big 12, Houston, right now.
Right. Houston is, they're the best team in the nation. They're on a tear right now. They're sitting at 27-3. They just won last night against UCF. They're first in the Big 12, first in the nation, which is kind of insane to think about when this is their first year in the Big 12, right? This is our first year in the Big 12, and we're not number 1 in the nation, but this team can do it all. They're dominating defensively. They're the best in the Big 12 in points allowed. They're top 2 in steals and blocks in the Big 12, and they can grab you some rebounds. And they kind of played a little shaky in that first half against UCF, but they bounced back. They won the game. That's all that matters. And I think I saw the thing. They win at least a minimum, a share of the Big 12 regular season title. So, and something that sticks out to me with this team is I want to shout out Jamal Sheed, right? He is the leader for this Houston squad. Every time he steps out onto the court, he just makes his teammates better. He's averaging 13 points per, 6.5 assists, as well as 2 steals. He's just doing everything right for this team, and I think this team is undoubtedly the best in the nation.
All right, and Noah, do you have any thoughts you'd like to add about the Big 12 before we move on?
I thought, you've summed it up pretty perfectly. Obviously Kansas is going to win, but, we'll see how it plays out.
Don't stop believing, Maybe. They might figure it out.
They could get one.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Hunter Dickinson. He's a baller.
Hunter Dickinson is good, but I don't think Kansas will end up making noise in the tournament at the end. So, sorry about that, Noah. But hey, you never know. But anyway, moving on. My conference I picked was the Big Ten. Now, currently as it sits, the Big Ten standings are as follows, with Purdue in first place, followed by Illinois, Nebraska, Northwestern, and Wisconsin. Those are the top 5 teams in the conference standings. They have 2 ranked teams. Purdue is the highest at number 3, and then Illinois is also ranked in the conference. And the biggest thing about these teams is Purdue and Illinois, these are very familiar faces we're getting to at this point come March, especially Purdue. Purdue is like, it's not in a good way.
Yeah.
All right, because they year in, year out, come tournament time, it is a loss to a double-digit seed in the tournament. Last year they were the second number 1 seed to lose to a 16 seed. Shout out Fairleigh Dickinson. Because, my God, dude, Purdue, I don't know what the issue is. I truly don't get what the issue is with Purdue right now.
Channeling their.
All right, because you have Zach Edey,
Yeah.
7'4", one of the best player in college
Oh,
basketball,
for sure.
like by
For sure.
far, and you are just wasting him. The fact that, like, we're not even talking a Final Four appearance. Like, this is embarrassing for a guy of this caliber and this talent. So, So Noah, I'll start with you. Do you have any thoughts about Big Ten Purdue that you'd like to share?
I thought that was perfect. That sums up Purdue pretty well.
Yeah.
It's just a very, I feel for Purdue fans.
Are you boiled over about it?
You can say, because it's
boiled.
as a Big Ten fan myself, I'm a Minnesota fan, right? I like to see my conference succeed in the tournament, but to be constantly disappointed by Purdue, I imagine it is just heartbreaking.
Now, do you think like Zach Edey's draft stock? That's got to go down if he's not getting these runs in, in the championship.
I mean, his draft stock was
doesn't have
already
the clutch
just bad to
already
begin
down,
with.
yeah. It's
But
already
just
down
like
there.
there's no like silver lining at this point.
Yeah.
Now, to turn on a bit of a brighter note for the Big Ten, a team one of my 3 teams I'd like to highlight. The third team I didn't mention, Ohio State. They have gotten on a real run here at the end of the season. They're in their last 7. They're 5-2 with a win over Purdue. I mean, who could have guessed? But they've been really hot at the best time I think possible. They're led by Bruce Thornton, their top scorer, averaging 16 points a game, also averaging over a steal, and is their leader in assists. He has been doing it all for them this season. And we always love talking about Cinderella stories come March, right?
Absolutely.
And I think Ohio State, now obviously they're currently in the standings, they're behind Indiana. They're 8-11 in conference play, 18-12 overall. So they really need to do well in the conference tournament.
Yeah,
if they want even a shot.
They need a couple wins.
At getting it in. Like,
A deep run.
I don't think they need to win it to get a bid.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think to get that auto bid, but like they are hot. They are hot now, and I think that's what they can do. But that is all we have for the Big Ten. Now moving on, Noah, tell us about the ACC.
No, okay, so the ACC might not stack up against the Big Ten or the Big 12, but if you look up the definition of a bubble team, half of the ACC will pop up. I mean, man, if you want to give your fans a heart attack, it's the ACC year in and year out. I mean, if we look at teams like Clemson, Syracuse, Wake Forest, Pittsburgh, all on the bubble. And it's honestly like the 3 teams carrying them right now is North Carolina and Duke. And honestly, I guess in Virginia too. They exist in a distant third, although their offense didn't exist when they played Duke last time.
Yeah, ACC, again, it's well known for its old blue bloods.
It really
we have
is.
Duke, UNC, but I feel like they have
classic.
taken a bit of a step back
They
in more recent
they have.
years. Matthew, is there any thoughts you'd like to share on the ACC before we wrap this up?
Yeah, like we said, Duke, UNC, they've definitely taken a step back this year. But I like your picks. I mean, I definitely could see Duke making a run in the conference tournament. And yeah.
I mean, they play Saturday against each other. 2 of the top-ranked teams going against each other. Decide the fate of the ACC. I mean, if you don't like that, you don't like college basketball.
No, exactly. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about.
And
Absolutely.
I will say this about UVA. It feels like it's been decades since they won that national title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause that wasn't so long ago. I believe 2018, 2019.
Oh, wow.
It was like somewhere. It was like before COVID. That was when UVA won a national championship, and I feel like ever since they haven't even been relevant in terms of like the national stage of college basketball.
Their offense has been horrendous.
Yeah, it's been really
been
bad.
horrendous. You can't win when your offense is ranked 255th this year. You're not winning. You're not.
That's
That's horrendous.
That is, to put it mildly, an embarrassment.
Absolutely.
But sadly, that
That's
is
rough.
all the time we have for college basketball. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me for this. It's been great having you. But stick around because you will not want to miss this rant, as this is probably one of the most historic ones I'll ever be talking about.
Jack, buddy, why are you here? I don't really understand why I'm here. I got called a delusional fan. I just don't understand why I'm delusional if I think Kirk Cousins had the best mustache in the league.
Well, Jack, buddy, I don't want to be the one to tell you this, but I don't think anybody looks cool in handlebars.
But they're back, man. They're back.
They're not. They're not. Sometimes you just got to face the hard truth. It's right there in front of you. All these people, they're calling you delusional, but sometimes you got to worry about, am I projecting? Is it me? And in this
Let me
case,
tell you something, bud. It could never be me. Anything I say is factual and truth, and that's why the Vikings are going 16-1 this year.
organization, you have to look at your roster and say, I've had Kirk O'Duggins for 6 years. Maybe it's time to move on.
There is no moving on from Perk Thuggins and Justin Jefferson.
Do you think that maybe this all started just because of a little disappointment?
Nothing has started. This is how I live, and I am not delusional.
And we are back, and it is time for the rant. And this is a big one. So on Tuesday earlier this week, a historic moment took place in Hanover, New Hampshire, when the Dartmouth men's basketball team voted to unionize. This vote was an overwhelming 13-2 win in favor of unionization. So now the question on everyone's mind for what does this mean for the future of college sports? Because this is huge. A college sports team unionizing, this is something that is unheard of, because college sports has always been, they are amateurs, as what the NCAA, the term they quoted, as the category they've always been filled. So, and to put it very simple, the simple answer to that question is that this has the potential to completely change college sports more so than NIL ever could. It's so hard to comprehend and to put into words just how insane this is. So this entire debate and argument starts at the beginning for their reason of wanting to unionize in the first place, is so that they could be recognized as employees of the university. And that is a massive distinction, because if they were designated as employees, this would give them all the same protections of federal labor law, and the university would be forced to share revenue with the athletes directly. And this would likely be done through a collective bargaining agreement like we see in pro sports. Now, the National Labor Relations Board Regional Director, Laura Sachs, who ruled last month in the start of this case, said, quote, that an employer-employee relationship does exist between the Dartmouth basketball players and the college. Furthermore, the fact that they are receiving non-monetary compensation like apparel, room and board, tickets to game, etc., shows that the university has control over them like an employer would. The only difference between the Dartmouth men's basketball team and a traditional employee is that they're not paid. They're not paid in any way, in any monetary fashion. So in response to this claim, Dartmouth, the university, and its board of trustees has come forward claiming that the union vote is illegitimate, with a statement from that very board saying, quote, classifying these students as employees simply because they play basketball is as unprecedented as it is inaccurate. It is expected that the university will take this into a federal appeals court, where a long legal battle will ensue for years to come. Now, an important thing to mention is that this isn't the first time that unionization has been mentioned in the world of college sports. Now, LA Chargers head coach Jim Harbaugh has voiced his support of players unionizing so that they could have a voice and get their share of the wealth from the revenue that college athletics generates. This all brings us back to the original question. Are student athletes employees of the university they play for? And therefore, should we get rid of the NCAA's amateur model altogether? Now, I would say that there's certainly a real case to be made that players are employees. especially considering the amount of revenue that they generate for schools. And it's weird how they don't get any part of it, because in any other field, say it doesn't have to be necessarily pro sports, just your job, if you are the one responsible for creating the revenue, you would expect to get a share of that money. Like you would, and obviously you would agree with it. All right? Now obviously there is a lot that would have to be figured out about this. Like, how would student athlete unions comply with Title IX as women need equal representation in all aspects of college sports? Would players be able to strike? How would that work? What benefits would there be like? Could every student-run sport unionize? How much money would they get? I will say this, however, at the very least, I think it would be fair to give student athletes more protections like an employee, since they are providing a service and helping create a product for the university like an employee would. Now, obviously, no one is saying that these students need to be paid millions or even hundreds of thousands, but they deserve something, right? The guy selling their jersey or the student running the ticketing stand is getting paid, but yet the player putting on the show that thousands of people come to watch get nothing? Now, obviously, they get a scholarship. An important distinction I'd like to make: Dartmouth players are not on scholarship as the case with all Ivy Leagues, so that is an important distinction. But in the case of other players, a benefit would be like their scholarship, being protected from injury, getting medical treatment in terms of like not having to. Athletes have to pay for their own medical care. The team doesn't really provide it if they need surgery or something like that, because they don't have the protections like an employee does. So there's a lot of food for thought, I think, that should be had. And for many years to come, this will be a very ongoing legal battle like we saw with NIL. And I think this can have a real positive change for college sports. But I would love to hear your guys' thoughts and what you think, those watching. But sadly, that is all the time we have for Main Show today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know I did. Catch us next week for more Main Show. And as always, I'm your Main Show host, Tyler Brownrigg, signing off.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated champs, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back. Okay, always locked in, now I don't got time to lax. Saying he the best, he could take a lap. Batted 1,000 when you check the stats. Boy, is you ready? You ain't gotta ask.